We're getting very close to the end of week 1 of our reduced blood sugar challenge, and I wanted to take this opportunity to ask how things are going and also to give you the challenge for week 2. I decided to record the challenge for week 2 because I had some information that I wanted to go ahead and explain so that the process is easier no matter where you are. Comment and let me know how week 1 is going so far if you are participating in this challenge with us. Let me know if you had some challenges. Let me know if it's been easy. I would really love to hear how it's going for everybody who is participating. But today we are going to talk about our challenge for week 2. And for week 2, we are going to do everything that we were doing in week 1, but we are going to incorporate cutting down 80 to 90% of simple carbs that we would naturally take in a day. So I'm going to go ahead and explain what simple carbs are and complex carbs are for those who are unsure of what the difference is. And I'll also go ahead, because I took the liberty of researching simple carbs and complex carbs on each continent so that it's easier. I know that it's not necessarily by country or region, but hopefully it being by continent, it would make it easier to determine what is good for you and what is not so good for you that you have to avoid no matter where you are. I would also be referring from time to time to my notes right here. So if you do see me looking to the right or looking down, it is because I'm looking at my notes on my MacBook. So do bear with me. Simple carbohydrates are basically carbohydrates or sugars that are easily absorbed into your bloodstream when consumed alone. So basically, to give you the facts, simple carbs, also known as simple sugars, are made up of 1 or 2 sugar molecules that are quickly absorbed by the body when it's consumed alone. They usually have a higher glycemic index as compared to complex carbs. Complex carbs are the opposite. Complex carbs, to a certain degree, have a lower glycemic index as compared to simple carbs, and they also are not absorbed directly into the bloodstream because they have some form of fiber. Simple carbs that are quickly absorbed into your bloodstream cause blood sugar spikes as compared to some complex carbs that do not get absorbed quickly into the bloodstream. And I say some complex carbs because there are some carbs that are classified as complex carbs that are not necessarily complex because they are also absorbed very quickly into the bloodstream, causing blood sugar spikes. I researched and I Googled and I realized that most of these whole grains that they classify as whole grains that they say are complex carbs and are good for us also do have some simple carbs that are quickly absorbed into the bloodstream. And even though they have some form of fiber, if you're insulin resistant, the carbs in these complex carbs would definitely cause blood sugar spikes. I'll explain further when I get there. So I have a list here of simple carbs by continent. And in Africa, what came up is cassava, honey, sugarcane juice, plantains, potatoes, and sorghum. This is not an exhaustive list, but these are the main or major simple carb lists that I found that can be found on the continent of Africa that should be eaten in reduced portions or eaten with a huge amount of fiber to slow down the rate of absorption of carbohydrates or sugars into your bloodstream to avoid blood sugar spikes. In Asia, we have rice, be it brown or white, jaggeries, that is unrefined cane sugar, lychees. I don't know what that is, but I searched it, and it is some type of a plant or a fruit. If you do know what that is, please explain to us in the comments. We'll be grateful. Sweetened condensed milk. I believe sweetened condensed milk and rice are things that can be found anywhere in the world now. So no matter where you are, try and avoid or reduce considerably the amount you do take in. In Europe, America, and Canada, try and avoid white bread, or basically white flour products, or even if it is termed brown bread or wheat bread or whatever it is, as long as it has some form of white flour, it has simple carbs in there. You want to avoid these or eat them with large amounts of fiber. Reduce the amount of white flour products or brown flour products as much as possible, because they do contain a significant amount of carbohydrates. And if it is not eaten with a large amount of fiber, it will cause blood sugar spikes, because it does get absorbed into the bloodstream fairly quickly. Simple sugars in Europe, America, and Canada: white bread, cakes and pastries, soft drinks, fruit juices, breakfast cereals, chocolates, candy, jam, honey, sugar cubes, maple syrups, or all kinds of syrups, and especially the ones with high fructose corn syrup. You really want to avoid it. Just avoid syrups in general. It really helps. Ice cream, agave nectar, brown sugar, donuts, and potatoes. Let me explain that all these items can be found in other parts of the world, but the reason why it is more specific to Europe, America, and Canada is because it is found more in these regions. And in these regions, most people have adopted what I call the fast food or the grab and go kind of lifestyle, where you easily eat pancake and maple syrup with cereal for breakfast, or grab any fruit juice that you buy in the store, or gobble down a donut just because you want to be done and out and about. But this is not very healthy for us, and that is why I'm more specific on those in these regions, because they are staring at us in the face all the time, and it can very easily be acquired. So do well to stay away from them or reduce it considerably. If even you would consume any portion of these simple sugars, ensure that you're consuming a good amount of fiber. And I cannot reiterate or emphasize this enough, that a good amount of fiber when eaten with these simple sugars. I don't say go gaga on the simple sugars, but when you cannot help it and you do find yourself eating these simple sugars more than you should, do well to eat a good amount of fiber-rich food to combat the amount of net carbs that will be absorbed into your bloodstream. Okay, moving on to simple sugars found in South America. We have sugarcane juice, dulce de leche or dulce de leche. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, but it's caramelized condensed milk, tapioca pudding, coconut water, guava jelly, sweetened condensed milk, and honey. That exhausts our list of simple carbs by continent. And like I said prior, this is not an exhaustive list. These are just examples of simple sugars that I found that can be found on each continent. So if something you eat is not on this list, I would advise that you Google it to see if it qualifies as simple sugar or complex sugar. And if it does, do well to also check the amount of carbs that are in it, because for those of us who are trying to combat insulin resistance, those of us who are trying to reverse type 2 diabetes, check our cholesterol, check our high blood pressure, especially with insulin resistance and diabetes. One of the things that you want to always check is the amount of total carbohydrates and total sugars that are in a particular meal. The next thing I would like to emphasize are fruits that you can actually eat during this journey and the ones to avoid. So the fruits with simple sugars, I'm going to start with that. Fruits with simple sugars that you should avoid if you're trying to reduce your blood sugar levels are dates, mangoes, pineapples, papaya, and bananas. Now, we have spoken about everything that we should avoid, or everything that we are cutting back or cutting down by 80 to 90%. So we are now going to talk about things that you actually can eat. Basically, complex carbohydrates that you actually can eat. But what I'm going to say is that even though they are complex carbohydrates, during my journey, I found out that some of the complex carbohydrates that we are advised to eat still spike my blood sugar levels unless I ate it with a good amount of fiber-rich side dish. And talking about fiber-rich side dish, I know I'm asked all the time, what are you talking about when you say fiber-rich side dishes? And that's why I've started sharing and still sharing most of the fiber-rich foods that I used on my journey to help me reverse type 2 diabetes. So if you're curious of what these fiber-rich side dishes are, just go to my homepage and the playlist. You will find all the recipes that you need to understand what I mean by fiber-rich side dishes. We have given examples of the simple carbs to avoid or reduce considerably, as well as the fruits with simple sugars. We are now going to talk about the complex carbohydrates that you actually can eat. But like I said prior, you still have to eat them with a considerable amount of fiber. And I'll give you an example in this very first one that I'm about to mention. In Africa, the complex carbohydrate foods that I found that can be eaten are millet, quinoa, brown rice, whole wheat bread, couscous, lentils, chickpeas, okra, amaranth. I don't know what that is, so somebody let me know if you do. And I hope I'm pronouncing it right. It is amaranth, amaranth, and sorghum. What I want to bring your attention to is all these things are really good, but during my journey, I realized that some complex carbohydrates still spike my blood sugar levels if not eaten with any type of fiber. So taking the very first one, like millet, it has great properties. The information I have on here, it is a significant amount of iron. It has 54% magnesium. It has some great sources of vitamin B6. 1 cup of millet contains 22 grams of protein, which is huge, which is great. But the thing is, if you're looking to reverse a condition like type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance, you have to take note of the total carbohydrates and total sugars or added sugars in each product. So even though millet has all these great qualities, and today, I know some may shoot me in the foot, but I'm going to debunk some of the information out there that we are made to believe are correct, and some of the meals or complex carbs that we are made to believe are so good for us, but are not put in context as to why it is said that it is good for us. So taking millet, for instance, it contains 146 grams of carbohydrates per cup, and it has a total of 17 grams of dietary fiber. Now, I have explained this before, I believe in one of my shorts, where I explained how to calculate the amount of net carbs that your body is absorbing. And that is by subtracting the dietary fiber in a particular meal per serving from the total carbohydrates. In 1 cup of millet, you're consuming 49% of the total carbohydrates that you need in a day. If 1 cup has 149 grams of carbohydrates, and 17 grams of dietary fiber. What you have to do is to subtract the 17 grams of dietary fiber from the total carbohydrates that are in your amount per serving. 146 minus 17 will give you approximately 129, if I'm not mistaken. But remember that every teaspoon of sugar contains 4 grams of carbs. So if you are dividing 129 by 4, that is going to give you roughly 120 by 4 is 30. So with a 9, that'll give you roughly 32 point something. So basically, consuming 1 cup of millet alone without any extra fiber, you are taking in about 32 point something teaspoons of sugar. And that is a lot of sugar that your body is going to absorb when this 1 cup of millet is eaten by itself without any added fiber. I really hope I'm making sense with all of it. If the explanation is not very clear, do let me know in the comments, and I will do well to shoot another video explaining that specifically and breaking it down. But basically, if you're looking to reduce your blood sugar levels or the amount of sugar that is absorbed into your bloodstream per meal or per serving, that is how you have to view what you eat and how much net carbs is absorbed by your body and how much sugar is absorbed by your body that goes into your bloodstream. The amount of sugar that goes into your bloodstream is what causes the blood sugar spikes. That is what causes the high A1C and then the high blood sugar levels. Many a time you're told, oh, this is good, and that's it. It is left at that. But what we are not told is that it is good compared to what is bad for us. So if you take millet and you take white flour, you would definitely take millet flour over white flour because the millet flour has more dietary fiber as compared to the white bleached flour. So comparatively, it is good, but not necessarily very good for you when eaten alone. The same with brown rice and white rice. If you compare brown rice and white rice, we are told, oh, brown rice is better. But the truth is, it is better compared to white rice. Because if you eat white rice in itself, the spike in your blood sugar level is more as compared to brown rice, but it doesn't necessarily mean brown rice would not cause a spike in your blood sugar levels if you eat it alone. It would, unless combined with a good amount of fiber. So all this information out there talking about what is great for us as a diabetic or what is great for you when you are insulin resistant, they are all not necessarily great for you if you eat it alone because it is being compared to what is worse for you. And since what is worse for you is not so great comparatively, those are the things that are considered complex carbs that do have a good amount of carbohydrates are better comparatively. I really do hope I'm making sense, but that is what you should be looking at. As someone who is trying to reduce blood sugar, your macros are very important. And one of the most important macro to consistently check is the total carbohydrates and the amount of dietary fiber in each serving of every meal, because that is what is going to determine how quickly your blood sugar spikes or rises. Let's take another example. If I was eating this same 1 cup of millet, which is giving me a total net carbohydrate of 129 grams, and I was eating it with a good amount of dietary fiber or extra fiber that is on the side, hypothetically speaking, let's say 100 grams extra of dietary fiber. This would mean that even though this 1 cup of millet contains 146 grams of total carbohydrates, I'm consuming 117 grams of dietary fiber. That means that the amount of net carbs that will be left for my body to absorb would be only 29 grams. And I say only 29 grams because 29 grams compared to 129 grams is low. See what I did there? Comparatively. So please do ensure to check and make sure that you're consuming a decent amount. And when I say decent, a low amount of carbohydrates by increasing your fiber intake. Now let's go to complex carbs that research has taught can be found in Asia. Again, I do see brown rice, quinoa, lentils, chickpeas, whole wheat bread, buckwheat, barley, adzuki beans, mung beans, and edamame. In Europe, some of the complex carb foods are, again, I see brown rice, but like I said, be very careful with brown rice. If you would consume it in very little quantities and with a whole lot of greens or fiber-rich foods. So brown rice, whole grain bread, oats, quinoa, lentils, chickpeas, barley, bulgur wheat, buckwheat, wild rice. In North America, we have quinoa, brown rice, oats, whole grain bread, lentils, sweet potatoes, black beans, wild rice, barley, farro. In South America, quinoa, brown rice, amaranth, lentils, black beans, chickpeas, and chia seeds. I would want to say that sweet potatoes and plantains are also considered complex carbohydrates. But in eating sweet potatoes, do well to eat it in reduced portions and do well to eat it with the peel, as the peel provides a good amount of fiber. Plantains are also okay, but that is the green plantain. The ripe plantain has a high amount of carbs, basically sugar. So do well to avoid ripe plantain if you can and eat the green plantain. And with the green plantain, currently, if I would eat green plantain, I would eat half of a whole plantain, but then a lot more of whatever fiber-rich food that I'm eating it with. In Canada, whole grain bread, oats, barley, lentils, brown rice, quinoa, buckwheat, chia seeds, sweet potatoes, and wild rice are also acceptable. But again, always ensure that you're eating them in reduced portions and you're eating it with a good amount of fiber-rich foods. I hope this information has been helpful. Hopefully not too overwhelming. Let's get on the community page and download our challenge for week 2 on reverdia.org. To get on the community page, simply click on my picture. It'll take you to the home page. On the home page, you'll see a community tab. In between, I believe, playlists and channels. Click on the community tab. It will give you all the instructions and everything you have possibly missed. I hope you will join us, reduce blood sugar, and bring that A1C down once and for all. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, definitely do leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you have not yet. If you're a new subscriber, welcome. If you have been riding with me, thank you. And until next time, remember to be beautiful, both on the inside and out. Be bold, be true to yourself and to others. Stay healthy and always be you.